So Nate's kind of changed his mind. He's not going to sit up here with me. So, yeah. Yeah. Um, but I am sitting, partially because of the leg, partially because I think it's a little more casual, and hopefully we'll see how this goes. Uh, and just so you know, we've been talking, if I can say this smoothly and delicately enough, we will be putting this on Facebook because I've been told by many people that they think it would possibly help others. And we have people on our Facebook from out east, out west. I mean, Texas, I mean, everywhere, not just Caitlin. So, I mean, they're everywhere. So, all right. I should say something about me being the lucky winner whenever I met you. So, we were at a hog roast, and there were 6 women there to meet him. One had 3 kids, one had 1 kid, and yay me. So, but I do have to say, I did notice him up playing bluegrass guitar. Oh, you know, he and his friend Dave. And actually, I lived with Dave before I lived with you, so that I really guess I got around, and his wife and 3 kids. But it makes me sound a little more interesting if I say I got around with the ministers before getting married. So, when you envision a preacher's wife, you probably think she probably plays piano, maybe sings, teaches Sunday school. You don't want me singing, and I can't play a tune. I can play part of Do Re Mi. So the teachers or the preacher's wives definitely have to know everything that is happening in the church and everyone in the church. And they definitely have all the answers to all the women's problems. You go to the preacher's wife if you have a girl problem, you know, and raising children is obviously their expertise. They have patience, probably have long hair, modest, muted colored clothes, timid and sweet disposition. Well, I did not attend college to become a minister's wife, and I never went to a single class on campus, anything like that. So I broke that mold pretty easily. Never once did I try and fit into that mold. Don't get me wrong. If we had a choir, I might try and join in, but not my thing. So Nate and I were introduced on purpose. Still blame that lady for it, but that's all right. Was a member of his congregation, and he and I had been through a lot of things the same in previous years, and so she thought we needed to meet each other. Had no idea. She just thought it'd be good for me to have a minister to talk to about things that we had been through. And we kind of hit it off pretty quick, and we're married 7 months later. And we were a little older. I was, I guess 25, 26, and he's 28. So I mean, not old by all means, but older than probably most of you were when you first got married. And so we knew we'd want kids, but we just kind of left that up to God for 3 years. And whatever happened, happened, and it was fine. And in that time, we crossed paths with Gib Daniels. We actually argued about this name the other day, and I am right. Gib Daniels, a social worker from the Illini Christian Children's Ministry. And he kept asking us, are you ready to be foster parents? And we said, could we get married first? And then he asked us again a couple months later, and they said, let's wait a year. And he goes, oh, we want you to be married 5 years before you're foster parents, because that first few years is tough on a marriage. Adjustments and cleaning up after each other and those kind of things. So we ran into him again after 3 years, and we both agreed at that time, we fasted and we prayed, and it was time. So we were foster parents. We took the classes, did all that, and we got Patrick. He changed our world quick. He burned down our bathroom. He kissed a kid bit a kid in the lip one time in kindergarten. And I was like, what were you trying to do? Kissing? No, he made me mad. And so we don't know exactly what happened there. But he's a wonderful, wonderful young man. I hate to think where he would have been if he wasn't with us. So I'm glad we kept him. We didn't plan to. He was supposed to be in and out, and we were supposed to be just respite care. And he looks like Nate and acts like Nate. So except for that kid, except for that biting other men on the lip part, it's. I might have had to draw the line at that. So October 9th of 2003, we got Patrick, and he never left. And Brant was due a very short 10 months later. He came a little late, so he's about 11 months later. And then 16 months later, we got Brant, or Jarrett. That was not our plan. I cried for 3 months because we went from an empty house, and in 2.5 years, we had 3 kids, 3 boys, 2 of them in diapers, and 1 with problems. And we were starting to see more of that as we went along, more of the issues that Patrick had. So we now have 3 boys, and we decided it was time to move. The church we were at weren't able to support us like we needed them to. And so we moved and I started back to college. And then in 2008, I got my first full-time job as a teacher. And then we also started trying to get Patrick diagnosed. And I teach special ed, and I knew there was something that wasn't right, but we couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. It was more than ADHD, but it wasn't the end of the world. His disabilities weren't. So we worked on that. Fast forward a couple years to 2011, I felt the need for our family to expand. I had 3 boys. Our dog was a boy. Our horse was a girl, but she was down at the neighbor's house. Everything, boys everywhere, everything we had. And I ached for a girl. And so after many discussions and a lot of prayer, we decided to leave it up to God for 6 months. Just 6 months. If I got pregnant, it was fine. If I didn't, that was fine. And our prayer was, don't let me get pregnant if it's not your will. So we did our part. And I was pregnant within 3 weeks. It must have been God's will. And so I ate right. I did what I was supposed to. I exercised. I even quit drinking Coke Zero. But it all didn't work out quite that like we planned. Even though we had done everything we were supposed to, we kept it a secret for 11 weeks. My mom was coming to watch the boys for a whole week. We got to go away to a special class to learn about evolution and how it's not the way it is. So the biblical view. And so she was coming. So we decided, all right, we want to make sure we tell the boys first, and then we tell my mom, and then we tell the church. So on October 12th, the night before, we told the boys. And on October 12th, my son runs out to the car and tells my mom while she's still opening the car door, my mom's got a baby in her belly. And, Jared's, 7 years old or so. And mom looks at me like, what? And I'm like, yeah. Then she was happy, she was excited for us because it's another baby to love. She's got 13, and another one would have been great. And so the boys were almost as excited as we were. They called the baby a fry because earlier that summer they learned that baby trout are called fries, not minnows. Minnows are a special breed. So that it was a fry. And we read books to prepare them and, what's going to happen, how mom's going to feel for a while afterwards and all that stuff to get them ready because we had a 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old, I think, something around there. And so we were getting ready. Every night before they'd go to bed, they'd kiss my belly and say, good night, little fry. Jay was the best at it. He always had to make sure, Mom, I didn't kiss the baby. Okay, so I'd have to go back in and for him to kiss him. So we went for our first ultrasound, and it was in early December. And Nate and I go to the doctor's office. The boys were, but Jarrett must have been 5 and Brant was 6, sorry, because they were all in school. And we go, prepared to see the baby, the little thing in there. We're going good, and we get there, and there's nothing. It's a blob. They called it a molar pregnancy. There's a technical term for it. Ask her; she probably knows what it means, what the word is. But the way the doctor explained it to us is that the baby wasn't fully developing, and as we talked, he said there could be some skin, some bones, there might be hair or even teeth, but there's no heartbeat. There was definitely no heartbeat. I said, I can, my, if there's a heartbeat, we're keeping it. I don't care what else is going on, and Nate was the same way. And he said, there is no heart, there is no heartbeat. So we scheduled the DNC for the next week. Ladies, you can explain to your men what that means. And that night, when the boys got home from school, they saw my face and they knew I'd been crying. And Brant, right away, something's wrong with the baby. He knew it. And so we explained it to him. And I will never forget the disappointment in Jared's voice when he just cried, I just want to be a big brother. And so that little voice and the disappointment. That Sunday, my best friend, my best friend's twin sister and husband were found dead of carbon monoxide poisoning. And the day of my DNC was their visitation. And I went. Probably shouldn't have because of physical reasons, but I did. I could not go for her. And then she and I couldn't talk to each other for 2 years because when I saw her and I saw her pain, it brought back my pain. And whenever she saw me, it brought back her pain, so we just couldn't. We send each other pickle stuff still today because that's another crazy story with my children. But we have a pickle thing and we share pickles and pickle everything. I have pickle boxer shorts, men's boxer shorts that don't fit anyone in my house. But I have them and I will never get rid of them. Nate and the boys had to live our pain and our loss in front of our church, in front of my school, in front of their school, in front of our community. And it was hard. And anytime you have a sudden loss. So, and of course, you have all the people that come up and go, oh, yeah, I had a miscarriage once. Yep, I had one. Yeah. And it's hard. And hopefully they see that it was hard for them, and maybe it wasn't hard for them. I don't know. That one was hard. But we joke a lot, as you all know, or most of you know. And I have trouble showing my emotions, more my real emotions. I can tell you lots of things, and we'll get to that part later. But Nate and I made it through those few months because we would just make jokes. My doctor was Dr. Fleming, and we would have to say it like we were clearing our throat because that's the way I remember it still today, and it's been how many years. And I understood the reasoning with it because I was like, God taught me empathy for people. I never had to have that empathy. I always felt for them. Don't get me wrong. But now I actually had the heartfelt empathy for them. It was deep. But we were going to make it because God was in control. Doctor said that was a fluke. Go a couple months and then try again. So we did, and we both agreed. Yep. The second DNC was in June of 2013. Same exact thing. So it's I was at risk at this time, so they checked a little earlier, and I was only 12 weeks along. And no one knew this one except for Nate and I. We shouldered that grief alone. We didn't share it with anybody. I don't do well with a whole lot of hugging. There's a few of you that get hugs, but usually it's a thanks. I'm not a hugger, and I didn't want to go through that again. In October of 20, that was in June of 2013. In October of 2013, I had a typical miscarriage. Typical, like many women have, but I was only about 2 months along. Thanksgiving of 2013, Nate's sister came to our house to live. came to our house to die. And she had breast cancer, but did not take care of herself with it, and ended up with cancer throughout her entire body. And Nate's other sisters came. She had a couple like CNA nurses and a nurse, and they came to help take care of her. So I continued to work. But on December 16th, 2013, Velma Smith died in our house. In January of 2014, after those same prayers, remember the prayers, don't let me get pregnant if it's not your will. I figured out I was pregnant again because I craved fried food. I mean, craved it. And this time I was only in my 4th week whenever I had the miscarriage. Then the next year, that was the one, the day the miscarriage started, because it's a little bit of a process usually. The day it started, I had to go do my home teaching job to a young high school girl that just got out of the hospital with her newborn son. And that was a little bit rough. I held it together, professional and all that. And then the drive home was a little crazy. That summer at our very overcrowded church camp, I got the privilege, this is July of 2014, I got the privilege to sleep in a storage room. And it sounds silly that it was a privilege, but you have to understand there was no one else snoring, and there was no dorm duty to listen to crying kids missing their mamas. I did not do well with that. So the second night there, I also had a laptop, and so I could watch TV at night. I watched a movie or something and go into sleep. So the second night there, I was lying in my bed. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was actually considering getting up, getting dressed, and driving to town to find some place for some fried cheese sticks. I did a little math in my head and went, oh no. And then I went to the hospital the next day and took blood work, and yes, I was pregnant. And that time I miscarried before we even left camp. So it was a quick one, but we still remember it. The question is, where does the preacher's wife go for comfort? You can't go to your minister because he's hurting too. And honestly, he could give me the biblical answers, and they were no comfort at all. I did what I was supposed to. We prayed about it. 2015 at Thanksgiving, we all noticed some major changes in my sister Diana. She was crabby. Nate's like, you cannot leave me here alone with her again. She was crabby. And we also noticed that she was getting more forgetful. In December at Christmas, my sister, her, and my other younger sister were a little more upset with me for sleeping so much and not helping with Christmas dinner and for Thanksgiving dinner, for that matter, either. And so I crawled out of the basement where we sleep at my mom's house. I got dressed and went to my mom and my sisters upstairs and told them about the babies we never told anybody. There was 4 miscarriages we never shared with anybody because I know what causes it. But we thought we were doing God's will because that's what we prayed. So they understood, of course, and hated that I didn't feel like we could tell them. And it wasn't that we couldn't, we just didn't. So during the 3-year time, that 3-year time between the miscarriages and telling them, I had heard so many preachers say things like, ask God and you'll receive, or prayer of the righteous person will receive what they ask for, James 5:16. Or how about Psalms 37:4, God will grant you the desire of your heart. So my big question in that 3 years was, what did I do wrong for God not to hear my prayers? My prayer was not to get me pregnant, I want to be pregnant. It wasn't that. It was, let me get pregnant if it's your will. The first one taught us empathy. The second one taught us sympathy. But by the fifth one, I was kind of getting, this is kind of ridiculous. And Nate says, well, we did our part. And I said, well, people do their part all the time and not get pregnant. So it didn't help me any. Again, he was hurting too and not understanding my hurt and his hurt. They are different, but they're both hurt. So for those 3 years, I hated God. I talked to him rarely. I hated him, but I still knew he was God and I wasn't. Back to my sister. Well, Christmas. That year, the kids and Nate got me tickets to the hockey game. St. Louis Blues hockey game. 8 rows up. And it was awesome. 2 fights. Change of goalie. They brought in the one that they just retired last year. He came in that as a rookie. It was awesome. We loved it. And I was like, Nate, you're changing. You're going to go to the hockey game with me. I couldn't even get him to sit and watch a hockey game with me at home. He goes, nope, I think you need to take Diana. I said, no, I don't want to take Diana. I want to take you. He says, no. He says, take Diana. She's the one that made me. She dated a guy for a long time that loved hockey and got us all into being major hockey fans. So I took Diana. And I knew that night that that was the last game she would ever see live of the Blues. I just knew it. She watched the games all the time, but but going live and 8 rows up, it was awesome. They won in overtime. So her husband, a couple weeks after the game, took her to the doctor because he noticed the same changes we had all talked about, and her brain tumor was back. So that's about, I want to say that was in February. And by April, she was down in Texas at MD Anderson. They were trying to give her as much time as possible. And they could do a surgery. So she had another brain surgery, but there was now 2 or 3 spots, tumors. And they went down, and my mom went with her, and they stayed for about a month. But right before she went, we got family pictures taken. We hadn't had a family picture since my niece was 3 years old, and she was then 18. So 15 years, and there had come along 12 other kids, and we hadn't had that big 25 people picture. So we did that, and they went down there, and in June, as soon as school was out, I started staying weekdays with my sister because she couldn't be left alone at home. And her husband needed to work. Like most of us, he needed his job. And I was a teacher. I had summers off. So I stayed. And at night, I would go back to his alma mater, that place where he went to school. And I would stay in the dorms. They would let ministers and their families stay for free or for a small donation, if you could do it and whatnot. So I'd sleep there to give them so that they would have their family time. And then I would go back in the morning before he left for work. 2 weeks later, we had to start staying 24 hours a day because he couldn't handle her by himself. And my mom was there with me during the day. And I still let her fall and trip over a rug and broke her zygomatic arch and gave her a black eye. And that was on my watch. So when you see a picture on my phone and you see that big old black eye, that was me. We took her to the hospital or the urgent care, and she goes, "Why were we here?" She forgot already. I mean, it was just right down the street. And I showed her a picture, and she goes, "Oh, that poor girl." She didn't even remember what she looked like, at that point. So, when we went to 24 hours a day, my other 2 sisters would come when they could. One had a job in the summer; she could only come every couple weeks, but the other sister came also. So I'd go for 4 or 5 days in a row, and then they'd come for 2 or 3 days, and then I'd go for 4 or 5 days, and back and forth. And I was making it to church about every other Sunday or so, because even on Sundays we couldn't leave her. Um, but I'd show up late and leave early every Sunday. I'd sneak in the back, have a seat, and run out the door. Do my preacher's wife duty of being there, being seen by a few, and then we lived right next door, so I would run home. Uh, my sister died August 21st in 2016 in her home, and I had just gotten home, and my baby sister calls and says, Vicky, I think this is it. I think this is it. I said, do you want me to turn around? I live 2.5 hours away. She goes, no, I think she's going to be gone before you get here. She's got to the breathing every 4 minutes or so things. It was really spread out. So again, prayers were not answered. This time, we never asked for miraculous healing. We knew what was going to happen. We knew 10 years earlier when the brain tumor was first diagnosed and they got relief from it, that when it came back, it would come back with a vengeance. Don't ask me what it was called, blasto something. But it did. It came back with a vengeance, and it was quick. So I just wanted to know that my sister was in heaven with my babies. That was my prayer. I wanted to see something with her. So at funerals, Nate often says, "Live your life so people know where you are afterwards." And let me tell you from experience, that is something very important for those who are left behind. So you need to live your life so people know where you're at. Needless to say, my depression got worse. I spent days in bed. I would get up, go to work, come home, go to bed. I'd go to church, go home, go to bed. I'd take sleep aids so I could sleep, just so I wouldn't feel anything, because I just didn't want to feel anymore. If it weren't for my boys and having to fake it every week for Nate to get a paycheck, I would have been dead. I would have killed myself. My depression was really bad. Galatians 6:2. God established a church to help with burdens like these. Nate preached a sermon once, and I hated it when he preached it. But now that I have grown, and I appreciate it. There are burdens that are meant to be shed, burdens that are meant to be shared, and burdens that are meant to be shouldered. I was shouldering a burden that was meant to be shared, so someday I could shed it. Most of you in a relationship of any sorts can imagine the stress that was in our lives at this point with my depression and I'm not going to say he was depressed, but he was definitely saddened. He hit it better than I did on that. If he was depressed, he never had to get medication like I did. I am all for not self-medicating, but you see the doctor and you get the help you need. You do it if it was a heart problem. You got to do it if it's a mental problem. You do it whatever you need. So until about 4 months ago, I thought I hit it pretty good from my kids because they were so young. They didn't know what was going on. 4 months ago, in a conversation here at the church with somebody else, Brent says, Mom, we knew you weren't okay. You were in bed for 3 years. And that kind of breaks my heart that I thought I was hiding it well. I mean, we went on vacation. I did the mom stuff. But I wasn't a mom. I wasn't a good mom at that time. So we'll fast forward a couple more years. In 2017, I shot a trophy whitetail. It's hanging on the wall. If you would like to come see it, Nate would like to tell you how it's his, but it's really not. He hadn't tagged it or licked it, so therefore it was free game. It is. I even did the European mount
for it, and we put it on a door, which is really crazy, and it's sideways in our house. The door's sideways, and there's the deer. And that door came from his mom and dad's house, which made me really happy about it. It makes me proud. But in cleaning the deer, because we butcher our own, I tripped over the antlers. Didn't think twice about it, except for I ripped my brand new coveralls. Wasn't really happy. 3 days later, my ankle froze up. It would not move. I mean, Nate physically, he's going, just move it. And he thought I was being like, I can't move it, and wasn't. He pulled on it, and he goes, it's not. I know. I said it won't move. That started my ankle issues, and I've had 6 procedures on my left ankle since 2017. And in the last 10 months, I've gone under the knife 4 times. So some of you guys don't know all that, and that's okay. I don't share everything. Some of you do know all of it. The difficulty my body's given me over the last few years, I blame it on soccer. I love soccer, love playing soccer. I played 4 seasons out of the year for many, many years. And that probably took a big toll on my body, is my guess. That's that. Who knows? But because my body doesn't do what I want it to do, depression and anxiety kick in more. Um, I am only 45, but the doctor says I have the joints of a 75 or 80-year-old. And I feel like it whenever I get up. And that was a big feat. And that one step was a doozy. I don't know if you could see my leg shaking. It was shaking, but we do it. Um, this song about to tell the truth is kind of me, because I feel like on Sundays, if somebody asks me how you doing? Oh, I'm doing good, doing good, doing good. I'm fine, doing better. That's always the answer. Um, I don't intentionally mean to lie to people. That's not the plan. But I don't want to be the needy pansy, and I don't want too many hands on me, taking care of my problems. Um, so the knee's doing great. It's stiff. It's getting better though. I mean, I went back to work at 2 weeks. Most people take 4 to 6 weeks off whenever you have an or knee replacement. I took off 2, and I work with some kids that are fun. I love them. I love them, and I'm gonna miss them. But they've left me with some scars this year, physical scars, and so that takes a toll on my body also. One of them the other day goes, "It's the other knee," and she knew exactly what she wanted to do. So I've been good to about keeping it separate and keeping them back. Haven't had any problems with that. Uh, but as soon as the knee is in really good shape, I'm most likely going to have my ankle immobilized, and that will take away the pains for now. So I'll be able to function with my family. We'll be able to go trout fishing, hiking, fishing, all that stuff we like to do. Bike riding might be interesting. I don't know how that'll be, because it's kind of hard to pedal, but we'll see. Because it will be immobilized, and your foot takes a toll on it. And then, but that'll work for about 15 to 20 years before it affects the foot, depending on how much you use it and how much you do. So we'll see what happens there. So while I've been going through all of this, Nate's had his issues. He had to go through all the baby losses. Um, since we've been married, he's had 17 procedures done on his good arm. And right now, many of you probably don't know that we've seen 3 specialists, because his spinal cord is being pinched in 3 or 4 different places. So he has dizziness occasionally. That's not as bad. It could be a whole lot worse. But he has pain all the time, chronic pain. Before I talk about what a wimpy is, I first of all want to let you know that Nate has never used his crippled arm as an excuse except for once, and that was changing diapers. We were uh, we were old school and we used cloth diapers. We used cloth diapers with the pins until I found the ones with the Velcro. That was pretty nifty. But we used cloth diapers for 6 months on both boys. Um, and so he come in one night, told me that he stabbed Brant in the liver. I just stabbed him in the liver. That's like, I think he'll be fine. Those diaper pins are so big in the little bodies, it could happen, I guess. So, um, Nate has always been a country boy, as you guys know. Anybody talks to him for too long, you know he's a hillbilly, and that's all right. That's why I married him, I guess. But he's anything a country boy has done with two hands, Nate's done with one. He's thrown bales of hay, he's wrestled the cattle, he's done it all. And it's now taking a toll on him. So that's his body and his grief that he had to deal with. I mean, his sister, that was a quick one. She was only with us 3 weeks from diagnosis to death, and so we didn't have much time to prepare for that mentally. Um, so if you take nothing from this, Nate usually says you got to have a 3-point sermon. I have 4 because I'm special. Be careful with your encouraging words. Sometimes it does more damage. James 1:19 says, "Be quick to listen and slow to speak." And after I got to hear about all the other ladies in the church that had miscarriages and things, I then wished on the second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one that I could have had more time. I would have spoke more and had somebody to listen. Um, Point number 2 is we don't always know the purpose of the pain. You know, that first one, it was easier to deal with because I had empathy. God was showing me empathy. We ask for patience, we get kids, we get Patricks, we get Brants, drive us crazy. Um, but my thinking is this life kind of sucks sometimes. I mean, there's just nothing you can do, and I know that's not a word people like to hear. I'm sorry if that offends you, but there's no other way to say it. It stinks. It's horrible. But just remember that sorrow may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalms 35. And that was one of my favorite songs we used to sing whenever we were at all those weeks of church camp. The third is to fake it till you make it. That sounds silly, but because I had to fake it so he'd get paid and we needed that paycheck because my paycheck wasn't going to take care of all of us. So because I had to fake it, I was able. Okay, I'm going to read this one straightforward because I like how I wrote it. Sometimes you have to make yourself go. You have to sit in the back, come in late, leave early, sit in side room. But go and listen. Do it reluctantly until it becomes a necessity again. We needed Nate's paycheck to live here on earth, but I needed the praise and the worship and the messages so I can live eternally later. And I know of a couple other people here in this room that have been through torture-ish type pain when they felt like their lives were ending. And I said, you've got to get back in there. I don't care if you like it. Don't listen to him. Just sit there and cry. Sit there and play on your phone, but do it because something's coming in your head. It's getting in there. And then it'll become a necessity again and you'll be up doing what you need to do. Lastly, because I have 4, you can only come up with 3. Lastly, remember that God is in control and he loves you. Even when I thought I hated God, he still loved me. Psalms 136, every stanza ends with his love endures forever. Another wonderful song. But My hating him never stopped him from loving me. So um, that's it. I will answer questions if I can, except for the DNC one because I heard that down here and I'm not doing that. So, Grandma Nurse, you explain it. Um, I know Dan laughed at me a little bit because 2 nights before the last My Story, His Glory, I had a dream. And I'm not one that believes that dreams do a whole lot. I mean, I don't think, I'm not a big believer in dreams because if that was true, I would be hanging out with Donald Trump too because I had that one the other night. But, um, and I had the power to make things grow with this hand and shrink with this one, and all my dishes fit in the dishwasher. I have very good dreams. But I had a dream, and our first baby was a girl, our next three were boys, and the last one was a girl. And like I said, I don't believe in the dreams thing. I don't know. But I think then 2 days later, I told her I would do this. And our babies now have names. I'm not going to give them to you because it doesn't matter. And they're just things that we liked. But our babies now have names. And if you come to our house and you come in the front door, not the garage, because that's where we usually open it, you don't want to try and get past all the motorcycle parts right now. But if you come to the front door, little rock right next down there says our fries, and it's 5 little fishies. We didn't have funerals, we didn't have any memorials, and I do wish we would have. That is something I will tell anybody who has a loss. That even if you're only a couple months along, you need to have, even if it's just your immediate family, you need something. But that's my memorial for our babies. I have my memorial for my sister is my tattoo on my leg. I don't believe that it's worshiping the dead or anything. Don't get me wrong, but it is on my foot, so I can see it because it's for me. I would like to get the 5 little fishies. If anybody wants to put in donations, I'll take it because it's going to be a little expensive, but it's not going to be big. But I do want to get the 5 fish. But I also have this wedding ring or a mother's ring, and finding a mother's ring that has 8 stones in it is difficult. So ours is Patrick, Brant, and Jarrett. Patrick and Jarrett both are January, so it's actually red, white, and blue, which is kind of cool. But then it has 3 white stones, and then we counted these 2 little rows of crystals on the outside. That's the other 2. So that's all 5 of them. And my 3 boys that I love dearly. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. Nate's good, but he's not that good. So I think that covers everything. The dream. I know Dan isn't here tonight, which is okay. I understand. But he was just like, I think God's trying to help you.